Yeah, good. It was very nice of my mother to provide Greg with the opening remarks about my career. She's always been my biggest fan. It is a huge honor to speak here. Wonderful to be back in Cape Town as well. I will confess, and it's nothing to do with HSBC not sponsoring thoroughbred racing, that the last time I got on a horse was in 1993. I was pursuing a very beautiful woman. I thought I could impress her with my horsemanship. I fell off, and the relationship was doomed. What I've heard in this morning's fantastic series is how much potential racing still has in the sponsorship world. To backtrack a little bit, I've been involved in the sponsorship world for 28 years. And from 2005 to 2017, ran HSBC's global sponsorship. And we sponsored a lot of things. And we also got asked for a lot of donations and sponsorship, typically between 10 and 11,000 requests a year, which meant that my jokes and the number of dinners I went to was significant, and I became very popular. But what we're seeing is still a misunderstanding of what sponsorship is all about. And quite simply, sponsorship needs to be regarded as an answer and an investment to a business need. And too many rights holders, in my experience of having been pitched, don't understand that. They think the transaction is all about them. It isn't, it's about the sponsor. We're seeing massive changes in tech and in consumption, which has been very much this morning's piece. And there is a massive disruption in society as well as sport. But I do believe, genuinely, that there is a golden age for sponsorship coming. And the reason I say that is because of technology. But the rights holders, the people in this room who sell, have to change their pitch because you're not hitting the market at all as well as you could. Sponsors will continue to be attracted to sport for all the emotive reasons that they always have been. And racing, as Ali said with her speech, has so much to give in terms of different audiences. But the data story is wrong. I just very quickly wanted to say, I used to be a historian back in the day, and I always think it's important to remember that the sports industry has always been in flux. If you kind of take modern sports starting around about the 1840s, 1850s, the Industrial Revolution created a middle class, a leisure class. Then immigration happened. And during the 20th century, with disruption, it wasn't called disruption in those days, it was called change probably, of technology, of the telegram, of radio, of TV, of jet planes taking people quickly, even the internet, obviously, have all massively changed the industry. And many organizations in sport in particular, many of them were founded in the Victorian era and have then tried to move with the times and have adapted slowly because evolution was happening relatively in good order. But not so the 21st century. As we've seen today with, I think I understood 1 word in 5 of what various people were saying with big, long words, it's now in ballistic change. And what I mean by that is, it's really, what that ballistic change is digital media. If you think about the various disruptions that have been caused in the sports industry from OTT and web-based media, which was partly as another way of getting to consumers, but was also a way of attracting money from Silicon Valley, another way of using the internet. We've seen changes, social media engagement. When I started at HSB in 2005, we didn't have a social media strategy for sport. Now it is the dominant piece for that team. You're seeing global fan bases coming to the fore, and we've heard some of those today from racing. Think of Manchester United, Real Madrid. They don't talk of themselves as a local club. They talk of themselves as a global club, claiming to have fan bases of over 1 billion people. You're seeing new leagues created, regional, global. You're doing it in this industry. It's all in change. New formats of sport. Cricket, obviously, is the famous one with 2020, trying to innovate, trying to attract new audiences. Esports, God forbid esports. I don't know if there are lots of youngsters here. I once tweeted about esports. If you put a hyphen in, you get trolled. Try it, it's true. But it's a thing, and the kids are doing it, and they are taking away marketing dollars from other attraction. And just in general, and think of yourselves, changes in consumption. Who would have believed that a small device in your pocket could be everything to you? And all of you are addicts, and you all know it. So it's extraordinary what's gone on in just the first 20 years of the 21st century. And yet, there you are, woke you up. And yet, sponsors are still being sold the same thing that they were being sold in the 1980s. All of this change, all of this engagement, same stuff, eyeballs. It's all about the TV. No, it isn't. It's about so much more. So, with all of this innovation, technology moving at 100 miles an hour, faster probably, I think the commercial model of sport has been really slow to adapt. And what that's also caused is something that's far more worrying and will be true in your industry as every other sport. With tech moving faster, so television rights, with cutting the cord technology, is changing the commercial model. The money isn't there. And so the sport business model is creaking. The traditional sports business model is creaking. And there are revenue threats. As I said, there's cutting the cord affecting pay TV. You will not see the Premier League getting the same amount of money from Sky Television in the UK than you ever did before. You're seeing piracy, you're seeing other people taking streaming. How do you govern different forms of broadcasting is an old-fashioned word, but content, I guess, is the new one. And most importantly, and the thing that should keep all of you awake at night, is kids. What is the next generation doing? How are they consuming? When are they consuming? Why are they consuming? Is live sport the thing they want, or is it not? And as a result of technology, the sponsors, who are after all the second holy grail after television, they are very aware of data and technology because they use it in their businesses. So what they want is direct engagement. Is the sports industry providing that data and that connection with customers in order to sell more product? Because remember, it is just a commercial exercise, sponsorship. It's about improving the business. So rights holders really need sponsors right now because the TV industry is quite screwed and it's trying to figure out and trying to balance itself out. But in order to get that money, I believe that rights holders have to be far better in answering and understanding the business need of every sponsor. The good news is I think that sponsorship has been massively undervalued for about 60 or 70 years. And I blame lots of people, but I really blame Mark McCormack, who was a great man. But I blame the fact that the sponsorship evaluation model was based entirely on television. And it was very vague. You think about panels, you think of eyeballs. No one really knew how many people were watching, but they created a very clever matrix model that allowed you to say that that many eyeballs had the opportunity to see. Opportunity to see, think about that. That isn't a number, that is an approximation. And the trouble is, that created an undervalue because sponsors knew that they had the whip hand. They knew they could negotiate because rights holders didn't have proper data. They didn't have the ability to say, this is who is really watching and who is really engaging. There wasn't, in other words, a business model. And if you don't have a business model for sponsors, for corporations, you don't have return on investment. And finance directors always want a return on investment. So I was lucky enough, I can divulge, I had $250 million to spend every year, made Christmas ever so much fun. But I had to do, the reason I couldn't get more money out of HSBC, which is a significant organization, is I could make an emotive case, I could put certain customer demographics together, but I couldn't shift the needle, particularly with current account and retail banking. And what's happened in this industry of ours is that assumed TV value meant that if you didn't have television, you had no value, which is absurd. If lots of people go to something like the Louvre or the British Museum or the Met, that's a very valuable commodity. A lot of people go every year. No TV must be worth less than Woking Town Football Club, and I'm actually not kidding. So the good news is, for all of you looking for sponsorship dollars and why I'm very excited to remain in this industry is I believe that we can shift this through technology for sponsorship to become a seller's market, i.e. where the sponsor doesn't hold the whip hand, but the rights holder does. Because in the old days, I could lowball any rights holder because they were pleading for HSBC money. But if you have proper return on investment numbers through data, you can prove that there is value. In simple terms, the technology now available through data and the processing of data will write the sponsorship value proposition. If you think about that, why? Most sponsors are commodity businesses, and they're pretty boring, mainly. They have competitors who do exactly the same thing. Cars, drive, beer, drink, banks, whatever banking does. I did it for a while. Insurance. They all do exactly the same thing. So how do you differentiate? How do you tell a story that tells your story that humanizes you, which is what sponsorship is? Sponsorship is a metaphor. It is a way of a boring company looking exciting and sexy, or whatever it is you want to say about yourself, by borrowing a metaphor from something else. And rights holders, you guys, this industry, with all of the things I've heard, with all the fun things that Ali gets to do for a living, my God, brilliant, that's the best job in the world, is you've got the golden bullet. You really do, because if you can take that data of your fans, don't rent it, don't take it from Facebook, own it, it's yours. They're your fans, they're your customers, they love you. That is what sponsors need and require. Sponsors, very simply, corporations want to know about their customers, who they are, where they are, what they are. That's what they want to know. Can you tell them? Can you give them information about the things that they actually care about? No one cares about banks. Trust me, they really don't. And electricity and they're kind of even worse. You get a bill or they kill you. It's a nightmare. So the association power of sponsorship is absolutely colossal, but it is undervalued because I believe that fan data, which, by the way, fan data are called people, real human beings. That data can be captured and create a really valuable proposition. And that means more sponsors will come and you create a seller's market. But don't wait for another conference to come around in 2 years or wherever the next one is for this fantastic body of talking about it. Conferences have a wonderful way of thoroughly agreeing 100% with everybody and then putting it back in the drawer and not doing anything about it. Because there's more revolution coming. It's happening all the time through technology, and it's radical. And sponsorship money, investment from sponsors, has got to be one of the ways to shore up and prepare a war chest for tough times ahead. And what do I mean by that? There's more tech innovation coming, more globalization. There's new demographics, there's different consumption. 5G, which Stephen talked about, I think is going to radicalize sport in the most brilliant way, but only if you capture it properly. The haves, I think, will get bigger, and the have-nots may really struggle. You think of FIFA, they're now looking at all sorts of new formats. Formula One, looking at electric racing, going against their cousin Formula E. Test matches, dwindling. Everything is in change. If you want sponsorship money, and I suspect everybody who is a rights holder looking at a commercial model, you have got to get hold of your fan and own them. So I think that in the way of looking at tectonic plates of history and sport, we're at another inflection point in the history of sport. If you can focus on your fan, which is the most valuable asset in the sports industry and the racing industry, then you have a good chance that sponsors will follow. Thank you.